This is a story of friendship. I gave Jimmy Sophronis a phone call this past Wednesday. I wanted to know how he and his parents, Chris and Lenny, were doing. Jimmy lives with them in the Bay Ridge section of Brooklyn. I first met Jimmy in Greece when he was just a baby. A little background is necessary. Up until 1968, when I was 19, I was never more than 40 miles away from my Flatbush, Brooklyn home. That changed when I was drafted. My first day in the Army was the first time I ever flew in an airplane. Induction was in Fort Jackson, South Carolina. By any standards, it was an uneventful flight, except it filled me with dread and fear. That has never gone away. Eventually, I was flown to Vietnam, and as part of my mission, flew to various parts of the Mekong Delta in helicopters and cargo planes. When I eventually flew home from Vietnam, I swore I would never fly again. In 1983, I was living in a shared apartment on West 57th Street. Up until that point, if I went on vacation, it was usually a Casser-guided bus trip to various parts of the Northeast, such as Pennsylvania Dutch or Martha's Vineyard. But somehow, I summoned the courage to book a Club Med vacation to Haiti, and then in the spring of 1984, another one to the Bahamas. My fear of flying abated only a little, but I thoroughly enjoyed the trips. In fall of 1984, my mother called to say she was traveling to Greece with John, my older brother. They were going because John was going to be the godfather for his best friend Chris's son, Demetrius, which is Jimmy in English. She asked if I wanted to go, and I immediately said yes. When I got to JFK Airport, I found it very comforting that I also saw two Greek Orthodox priests board our flight. We stayed in Athens a few days for the baptism. While there, we went to the Acropolis and various museums, and it was enjoyable. Mom's game plan was that we would also travel to two Greek islands for the rest of our stay. Traveling by ferry boat, we first went to Paros, which I would describe as a family-orientated spot, very peaceful. Greece was very affordable then. We were able to rent a house with each one of us having our separate rooms. Again, the next week, we traveled by ferry eastward to Santorini, which I thought was very exotic. Again, we had separate rooms in a rented house. I had fond memories of that adventure. In another piece, I would like to relate in detail my experience with my very hip mother. I should note that John and Chris were boyhood friends. They served together as altar boys at the St. Constantine in Helen Greek Orthodox Cathedral in Brooklyn Heights. Their hangout was the Queen's Pizzeria, which is still operating on Court Street. In December of 1990, John suffered an aneurysm at a church dance. Chris would frequently visit him while he recuperated. When John got his own apartment in Bay Ridge, he and Chris were in walking distance of each other, where they would get together at various coffee shops. John deteriorated. I took early retirement in 2004, and on weekdays, I would make the 2.5-hour trip to Bay Ridge for his care. My two sisters lived in Brooklyn, and I counted on them to cover weekends. I would take John, if he was able, to meet Chris at Pegasus Coffee Shop for our joyful reunions. In 2008, John succumbed to his illness. Chris developed Parkinson's. I would periodically visit him and bring him his beloved Greek avalemina soup from Pegasus as a treat. I was John's main caregiver for his last year, and I thought I had it tough. But his son Jimmy and his wonderful wife Eleni have certainly set the gold standard for care and devotion. God willing, when this pandemic is over, I can visit Jimmy, Chris, and Eleni in person and keep the light of friendship glowing.